Hello, I'm Alan Young. I am editor of the Scotsman. We've just had Keir Starmer's dramatic resignation statement on the steps of number 10. I'm joined by our political editor, Alistair Grant. Alistair, what do you make of it?
Yeah, so this is obviously a long-awaited statement from Keir Starmer. There's been lots of speculation building, particularly ever since Andy Burnham won the Makerfield by-election. He was obviously running in that by-election on the kind of understanding that if he won it, he'd be launching a kind of leadership bid. So over the weekend, there was lots of talk about this, and today we had that lectern coming out outside Downing Street, a scene that people will be sadly familiar with now. Not the first time we've had this in recent years. It was quite a short speech, just 6 minutes. Keir Starmer quite keen to sort of lay out some of what he sees as his own achievements on the economy, on NHS waiting lists, on things like wages rising, on the kind of Britain's standing on the world stage, talking about standing up for Ukraine. But I think probably the most interesting bit of it was towards the end, in those like kind of last minute of the speech, when he paid tribute to his wife Victoria and talks about being able to be a good dad to his 2 teenage children. And you could really kind of see the emotion coming through there. His voice is kind of cracking and quavering with the emotion. And it was sort of a rare glimpse of Keir Starmer, the human being, or kind of a rare glimpse behind his, frankly, sometimes robotic public persona that people might be familiar with. You know, he's not someone who's naturally charismatic. I think throughout his time, his short time as Prime Minister, he's really struggled to connect with the public on an emotional level. That's been part of the problem. We've seen some of his, I think he came into power, and I think, you know, to be fair to him, he inherited some difficult economic circumstances. He inherited a lot of problems. The small boats crisis is obviously something that's dogged his time in power. That was something that existed before he became Prime Minister. But he's also had his own poor judgment coming in and some kind of high profile mistakes that he's made, particularly around major policy U-turns on things like welfare, the 2-child cap, waspy women. And I think part of his pretty astonishing unpopularity has been his inability to set out his own vision for the country and to connect with people on that emotional level. And today was a sort of real glimpse of the human being behind that. So I thought that was quite striking. But attention will now turn to what's going to happen next. And he set out that sort of timetable for a leadership contest. If there's no contest, we're obviously expecting Andy Burnham to essentially have a coronation. And for basically a new Prime Minister to be in place after the summer recess in Westminster. So it's going to be a dramatic few weeks, I think, in Westminster and beyond.
Yeah. And is the safe money on a Burnham coronation now?
Yes. I mean, well, I suppose there could be I would have thought there'd be a coronation. There could be some kind of contest, I guess, but the safe money is 100% on Andy Burnham being the next leader of the Labour Party. I mean, frankly, as far as Labour are concerned, the most important thing will be defeating reform at the next general election. And Andy Burnham has shown in that Makerfield by-election that he can do that. So I think from the party's point of view, that will be the most important issue. And I just don't really see a sort of serious contender to that. And even Wes Streeting, who is sort of seen as the main contender, perhaps, the former health secretary, I think the language coming from his camp has sort of changed as well. And he might now be almost kind of angling for a big job in a Burnham government. But these things can move quite fast. So we'll just have to wait and see. And it's also worth saying that Andy Burnham will face many of the same problems that Keir Starmer did. So he will have a lot to prove when he comes into power. And people will be looking to see what his agenda is. That's something that will be asked within the Labour Party. What's his vision for the country? What's he going to achieve? How is he going to do it? There's lots of questions for him as he comes in, because we've not really seen a kind of policy prospectus from him. We've not seen a lot of information about what he will actually do with his time in Downing Street.
Thanks very much, Alistair. Please keep an eye on Scotsman.com throughout the day for all the latest twists and turns in this story. Bye for now.